Good Friday morning. Welcome to hour number 2 of Ocala Talks with Tom Schmitz. Galen Unall from Life South joined us in hour number 1. But right now in studio, and I got a full studio. Not only do I have a full studio, I got somebody on the line that's part of this panel group as well. In the studio with me, though, is Roseanne Frick. She is the CEO of the Early Learning Coalition. Elizabeth Diola, she's the Chief Programming Officer. Tanya Cox is the Help Me Grow Care Coordinator. And then they have a partner that they work with on a regular basis from Fiddler's Child Fine. She's a child fine specialist, Jen McBride. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Wait, let's do this. Good morning.
Good morning.
See how it works when I actually push the right button? And we, Roseanne, we have somebody on the phone, too, that we want to recognize.
Absolutely. We have Julie on the phone joining us from Healthy Start up in Gainesville. She's another partner with us.
Julie, good morning to you.
Good morning.
So we're here to talk about developmental screenings. I'm going to be honest, I was a high school teacher for 5 years. I know a lot about developmental this and developmental that, but I got no idea what developmental screenings is. So somebody bring me and the audience up to speed.
Sure.
Good morning. Developmental screenings are performed to just ensure that your child is on track, developmentally on track for their age group. So we have 4 different types of screenings that Help Me Grow does. We do it's called Ages and Stages Questionnaire. 3, we do that one, and also Ages and Stages Questionnaire, Social Emotional. And we do the pediatric checklist, pediatric symptoms checklist, and also MCHAT. Now, the ages and stages, we say ASQ. ASQ, that's pretty much performed, the parent does the ASQ. They do it, and it has 5 domains that they're screening for. You have communication, gross motor, fine motor, personal, social, and problem solving. So that's and on ASQ, the social emotional is just designed to see where the child is socially emotionally developed, if they're on target. And also with the pediatric symptom, it identifies and assesses changes in any emotional or behavioral concerns for the children.
So if these screenings had been, how long? I don't know how long these screenings have been around, but in 1969, if these screenings had been around, y'all might have been able to predict that I was going to get kicked out of the bowling alley child care program because I bit the hell out of everybody I got a chance to bite. So socially, I was not very developed. I was very smart, but I also saw any kind of altercation, it was time to just bite everybody.
Right. We'd have to do a pediatric symptom checklist on you.
For sure. I think these are. I don't know if we can predict that you would have made those choices as a little boy, but it definitely would give us the red flag.
But this
to go further.
But these screenings are all about the cognitive advance of a child from birth up until school age. Is that what we're dealing with here?
About 8 years old.
Right, about 8 years. Right, because
second grade.
The human brain is a sponge from the time it's born
Correct.
till you're about 8 or 9 years old.
Yes.
Without a doubt, it's think about as an adult how hard it would be. And I hear these Babbel commercials and all, and Rosetta Stone, and I go, it'd be nice to know Italian if we were going to Italy. I went to Mexico for Christmas 2 years. It'd been nice to know Spanish to go to Mexico. I'm old. My brain ain't gonna pick that up real quick. But as a child, a 3-year-old, you introduce a 3-year-old or 2-year-old or 3-year-old to 4 or 5 different foreign languages. By the time they're 7 or 8, 9 years old, they're fluent in 3 or 4 or 5. Right. Kobe Bryant, the late great Kobe Bryant, could speak 6 foreign languages by the time he's 10 years old because he lived in Europe and his family exposed him to all that.
Right.
So we're dealing with developmental screening. We're dealing with the advancement and the cognitive development of the human brain in children.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Now I got an understanding of what we're talking about.
And it's not just the brain, it's their physical development, and it's the social part where can they sit next to their friend without poking them? Can they?
I can. I take Ritalin 3 times a day.
There you go.
I'm still 54 years old, take Ritalin 3 times a day, so I'm not over there, because I would be at Joanne going, Joanne, squirrel.
And it also helps us to detect if there are any concerns, detect them early, and to be able to have early intervention, and to be able to assist those children, families and children.
Which is where our partners come into play.
Right.
Because then we do this screening. We have the screening tool available for our families. And then we refer out to our partners, such as Fiddlers. Jen, do you want to talk about what you do?
Yes, yes. So my name is Jen McBride, and I'm the Child Find Specialist from Fiddlers Springs. Fiddlers stands for Florida Diagnostic and Learning Resources System. It's a grant-funded project under the Florida Department of Education, and our goal is to provide professional development, technical assistance, information, and early childhood identification services to school districts and families so that every student in Florida has the opportunity to reach their full potential. Fiddler Springs here, we serve actually Marion, Citrus, Gilchrist, Levy, Dixie, and Alachua counties. And
She said that in one breath, too.
She did.
Sorry, I'm a fast talker. And basically what I do as a child find specialist is I work with, in coordination with the local school district, and I locate children in our communities. So, for example, when Tanya screens somebody and they don't pass her screening, they get passed on to me. Then I do a full screening using a different instrument, and I also gather records from any outside therapies that they're going to or physicians, and then I complete my screening and send them on to the school system for a further evaluation, and that's how they get services in the school district.
Is the reasoning behind this because we're trying our best as educators to make sure that every child has as normal of a life and possibility? Because when I was in school, you had regular classes and you had special ed where those kids, they didn't interact with us. And in my junior year of high school, they started mainstreaming the special ed students into homeroom. But they didn't do anything to deal with the general, it's terrible to say this, the general population of the school versus the special population. And so we had a kid, Cooper Taylor, who was autistic. We didn't know he was autistic at the time because that wasn't a word in 1982 that people used. But he would put his fingers in his ears, sitting in homeroom, and go boop, boop, boop. He was always twitchy and everything. He was autistic. Well, Cooper got picked on. So I was like, look here, y'all mess with Cooper one more time, and we're gonna have a problem. So at the end of that day, I told Cooper, I said, Cooper, if they mess with you one more time, you do whatever comes to your mind, and I will take the flack from the teachers, the principals, or whatever for telling you to do that. And at the time, I was pretty important in the school. I was the school president, class president, and everything. Okay. And so the next day, Charles Shepard, I love Charles to death. I know every now and then he'll listen. Charles messed with Cooper, and he went and poked at him in the ear or something and said something to him, and then the whole class. Charles turned his back. Cooper picked up a history book, smacked him in the back of the head. He was unconscious.
Cooper had enough.
He'd had enough.
Yep, Cooper had enough.
But when Miss Wells came in, what happened? I told Cooper to hit him with a book. That's what happened. I took all the punishment but we weren't prepared for those kind of kids to come into our classroom. Yeah. And it's terrible to say that he was picked on and everything, but we weren't prepared as a population to interact with people that had been locked away from us, in school. And that's not fair to either student, the mainstream student or the student with special needs. And I think these kind of programs try to bridge that gap. Am I right with that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And it's also all about early intervention. I mean, we're trying to capture children very early, birth to 5, birth to 8. And so we can give them those supports and services early to get them ready to go into a mainstream setting in the school system.
I've seen some scary numbers, and I don't know whether they're there for shock value or not. But I was reading an article about 2 weeks ago that says that if we don't do something now, which you are doing, catch it early, that 1 in 3 by 2035 or 2045, 1 in 3 would be diagnosed somewhere on the autism spectrum.
Yep.
Are we headed towards the only thing we're going to do in this country is we want to be able to work or anything because we'll have to take care of our children and our grandchildren because of developmental issues?
I hope not.
Yeah, we hope not, and that's part of our goal is to educate, which is exactly what you're doing and assisting us in doing today. Because the more education that parents have now, they're in a better position to meet the child where that child is at, because we all want success for them.
Do you still have, is it still an issue sometimes where parents don't want to admit or don't want to see the writing on the wall?
Absolutely.
Sure.
That's part of what we're here for, is to take that open-minded approach and offer some services through Help Me Grow that is wholly encompassing. So we're not just talking about are you seeing behaviors you don't like with your child? We're talking about ways we can help and what are the other things going on in your world. So it's a holistic approach. If a parent is worried about paying the electric bill, they're not going to be so worried about what their child is, if they're biting or not biting at school. They're going to be like, oh, they're a kid, and they're moving on because their worries are different. Well, we're here to help kind of balance that world. And I want to bring Julie into the conversation and hear about Healthy Start and how she fits into this world. When we do these screenings, they are also another partner that we refer out to for additional services.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And that was a perfect introduction, actually, to what Healthy Start does and what our home visiting programs do. We're really kind of that all-encompassing, holistic approach to everything else that's going on in that family's life and trying to assist them in those needs so that they can focus on their child's development and understanding what expectations are and why certain behaviors are being performed by that children. So we help them address those other needs, such as housing or getting their light bill turned on, and how to positively parent so that it is a positive household and they can focus on their child.
You always hear, and it's a sad story, that some children, the only meal they'll get is the breakfast and lunch that they get at school.
Yes.
And so y'all, if I'm understanding what's happening here, you're not only about the cognitive development of children, you're the physical development of children, the social development of children, and assisting families in how they can help do all of those things to better make their children successes.
Yes, absolutely.
I've learned
You get an A.
I learned a lot today.
There you go. Well, and these are services that
With
are
our-
available throughout the community at no cost to the parents.
Which is a big deal.
It is.
If you can't put a meal on the table, your children are eating breakfast and lunch at school, and that's their only meals. Free is good.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. We don't want a parent to have to worry about pulling out their checkbook or avoiding our services because they can't afford it or they don't have insurance or something like that.
Now, is this? Do you find that it breaks down in socioeconomic situations, or is this something that it doesn't matter what your socioeconomic system is, doesn't matter what your race is, doesn't matter your situation? This is a problem in households in every genre.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I would say.
Because you always hear people make the excuse, well, they didn't have everything. There are people that have everything and still have children that need these services.
And some of those are even worse off because they try to fix it by buying something new, and it's not always that. Sometimes
You
it's just
can't always throw money to fix it.
correct. Sometimes it's just sharing a plate, and talking and making eye contact and a hug.
Now, is there any services y'all go into from birth to 8? Is there any services after 8 years old? Does it continue, or by about 8 years old, do you pretty much have them tracked the way that you need to go, and you go from there?
I think, Jen, do you want to talk about
Well,
system?
yes, for me, I'm looking at, of course, referring them for an evaluation with the school district, and it would be looking at eligibility in a special education program, like speech impaired, language impaired, developmental delays. And so if they qualified for a program in the school district, they would get an individualized education plan, and then that would stay with them as long as they needed it throughout their school career.
So it's not something that once they get past 8, it goes all the way through senior high school if they have a plan developed.
Yes.
Just the plan is developed between birth and 8 years old on how to go. Because I'll tell you, Adrian Peterson, who played at Santa Fe High School in Gainesville, played at Georgia Southern. He should have played at the University of Florida. He was good enough to play at the University of Florida, but he had a bad speech impediment. He couldn't. He literally, when I first met Adrian as an 18-year-old, it would take him 10 minutes to get one or two sentences out. So when the University of Florida went to recruit him and they found out about speech impediment, Steve Spurrier calls up to Georgia Southern to Paul Johnson, who's friends with, and goes, "I got a guy down here that's a Division I University of Florida football player, but he can't speak. He can't talk real well. And if he gets in front of a camera in a Division I football game after he has a great game, they're going to say, all they're getting is stupid mutes at Florida and everything. And the media would eat this kid alive. What do you think about Georgia Southern?" So they brought him in Georgia Southern. I remember when I first met him, I played football at Georgia Southern. When I first met him, it was real difficult, but they had a plan. We had a plan. The football team got him in with a speech therapist and everything, something he'd never had before. And now Adrian's 38, 39 years old, you would have no idea he had a speech impediment except when he says his S's, he lisp a little bit.
And see,
But
you
if
would've
he'd have
gotten
had that from
Adrian.
birth,
Yes.
he'd have never played at Georgia Southern. He'd have played at the University of Florida. And that's the kind of things we're trying to turn around here.
Yes.
That don't get him help with speech impediment when he's a sophomore in college because you have the resources. Get him or her help with a speech impediment at 3 years old when you realize that they don't develop. Because when you're not developing your always real well. You know that at 3 years old, whether you can say R, whether you can make the R sound or not.
Correct.
That's right.
And that's that's what you're talking about, is catching it early.
Yes.
To try to give this child who has a difficulty the best life you can give them as early as possible.
Yes.
And to identify whether or not that child does have a difficulty. Because, yes, you want the child to have success. And because, as you said, and everybody knows, our brains are sponges, the sooner the better, because that foundation's being created, whether we're doing something about it or ignoring it.
And it's not just educational, it's behavioral as well, correct?
Yes. Right. It's
Because
developmental.
behavioral, look, I was a straight A student, never made less than A. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Daniel Memorial up in Jacksonville. It's a home for the profoundly mentally handicapped now. But at one time in the early 70s, Dan Cook opened it. It was for emotionally troubled teenagers who would, instead of dealing with situations, they would have overreactions to small little situations. You know, like when your teacher tells you to sit down and you scream at her no, and she says you're going to have detention, so you pick your desk up and go hit her with it 4 times.
Oh, my.
6th grade. That was a Catholic school I had to go from. I mean, and I was that kid. I was the kid that I've been diagnosed with, what was it, the way I deal with my anger or something, that I would have catastrophic responses to minute problems. That was when I was 37. How much could I have been helped to somebody to know that they weren't just normal temper tantrums I was throwing when I was 3 and 4 years old?
And
Exactly.
teaching you ways to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, that's part of it, is giving kids and parents the tools and education to know what those developmental pieces are, to know that a 3-year-old should be able to perform A, B, and C action by the time they're there, and to give you the tools to deal with it.
I got stuck, though, at 54. I'm in the age group where I was the first generation where they stopped saying, maybe it's not that they're bad kids. Maybe there is something, this chemical imbalance in their brain and some behavioral issues and everything. So I was lucky and cursed at the same time, because I had doctors that said I had ADHD and that I had overreactions to minute problems with anger and everything. And then I had my dad going, he's just a boy. You whoop him 3-4 times a day, he'll be all right.
And now we have anti-bullying campaigns.
That's right.
And I was the worst bully, by the way. I was the worst bully, and I'll tell you why.
But you stuck up for Cooper.
But I did, well, I would do that. But in a bully situation, I would always go bully people that I knew that they thought they couldn't be bullied. I'd never bully the weak. I knew that you don't do. I'd go bully the people that bullied other people.
Bullied the bullies.
And then I was the worst, because when they start to, a bully, usually when you bully somebody and you stand up to them, the bully goes away. I was the worst. You stood up to me, I'm like, finally, somebody with some guts. And so, but those are all problems that are real life, real world problems for children every day of the week.
Yes.
As adults, we think we got problems paying light bills and everything. It's just as big a concern to a child. Am I going to get gum stuck in my hair by that guy that sits behind me because he doesn't like me today? That's just as big a problem when you speak about bullying as whether we can pay the light bill or the mortgage payment to an adult.
That's right.
Well, we need to look at the reason why kids are bullying other kids, because
A lot of times they have a bad house. A lot of times bullies are having a bad home situation.
Exactly.
right.
And we can help with that too.
I don't have children. I made that decision at 19 because I didn't want to. I only knew one way to raise children, the way my mom had raised us. And you're not supposed to take a fan belt and hit a kid. You're not supposed to take extension cords and slap a kid in the face. So I knew that's how I'd learned to parent. Best thing for me, not be a parent. So, but and when we talk about these things, though, you don't just help the children. You go in and make a plan that is encompassing of the family and what they need to do. Because sometimes the family can be a harder nut to crack than the child.
It is, absolutely.
And that's what Help Me Grow does. We work with the families and we give them resources based on their situation and their concerns. So we give them resources. Also, we follow up to make sure that they receive those services. So.
Now, do y'all work in concert with? Because sometimes you have children that are shown to be in situations that aren't the best through interactions with the police departments and stuff like that around town. Do y'all get referrals that way, or is it?
Yes.
But, yeah.
Yes, we have many partners in the community. Marion County is resource rich, and we all work together because the goal is to make things better. And we can't do that if we don't talk to each other. So yes, Department of Children and Families, Kids Central, Healthy Start, Healthy Families, Safe Kids, all of them. Yeah.
It's all about, I don't necessarily like the politics of a certain woman, but she was right. Whether you like it or not, if you want to raise a child properly, it's not just a nuclear family. It does take a village to raise a child properly. Whether I like her politics or not, she was spot on when she said it takes a village to raise a child.
Well, and politics aside, children are going to grow up whether we like it or
Whether
not.
we like it or
So
not.
we got to provide that strong foundation, and we got to show everybody that's involved a proper way to handle a situation, and that's what we're.
And
that's what
we're
try to
talking about our most precious resource,
Absolutely.
children,
Yes.
the leaders of tomorrow.
Yes.
I mean, that, think about that. Barack Obama at one time was 2 years old. You know what I mean? Donald Trump at well, never mind. But at one time, everybody who's somebody was a nobody that was trying to figure out life.
Absolutely.
And you through your partnerships are assisting people in how to figure out life. And that's a.
And it's easy to reach us because we do have a Facebook page, and of course our website is elc-marion.org, right here in Marion County. So it's real easy to reach us for parents to send us an email or visit our Facebook page and leave us a message, and we reach them back.
And I say this, and I know all of you will echo this. Even if you've been told by a professional, a pediatrician or whatever, something different, but in your heart of hearts and in your brain as a parent, you know something still isn't right. Act on that. Don't say, well, the doctor said it was okay. Right. If you still in your heart of hearts and in your mind know that something doesn't seem right, reach out to the folks here today. Do what you need to do, because as a parent, the only person that knows certainly that there's actually a problem, and keep going. No matter how many times they tell you no, if you in your heart of hearts know something's wrong, keep asking the questions, what's wrong with my child?
If the spidey senses are
Yes.
tingling, listen to them.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming in today. And thank Julie, thanks for being here on the phone with us. And anything we can do to continue this conversation, we'll help you at every pass.
Can we have Julie share how people can get
Yeah.
in touch with her?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Julie.
Thank you. If you go on the website, connectncf.org, any pregnant woman or a family with a child under the age of 3, we can connect you to all available resources in your community.
And contact Fiddler Springs at springs.fdlrs.org or call 352-671-6051, and we take referrals on children birth to 5.
Thanks so much, ladies, for being in here, and thanks for everything you do for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be back after this short time out. You listen to 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, WOCA, The Source.
Broadcasting from the